We're going to start doing breaking down the reading that we've been doing just so that we can get the entire picture. What's happening is sometimes we read a whole passage and it's hard to comprehend. So what we want to do is focus on certain elements and then bring it all together, okay? So there's a format that we do this by. We have certain what's called story grammar questions. And, excuse me, what we do is we look, I'll write the questions on the board and we'll go through it. So first off, we look at who is the main character. Where and when does the story take place? What does the main character do? How does the story end? And then, how does the main character feel? Alright, so these are the components that we will be looking at while we go through our story. Now, in the process of while we're reading, I'll be giving your own copy of the book so you can actually highlight it. A lot of times we highlight or color code things so that way we can actually pick up things a lot easier. And then after we go through these things, we're going to fill out an organizer to answer these questions. And finally, just to understand where we're at in our understanding, we're going to do what's called a rubric. And so this is what I'll have you guys turn in. So I will ask myself, am I able to answer these questions? I am able to read and understand the narrative texts. I can pick out characters and identify who they are. I can describe the settings, how the story ends. I can describe the characters' emotions. I can understand their actions. I can identify keywords or phrases that relate to the topic. I know if I understand what I read or not. I'm able to recall that information I read, and I'm able to put my thoughts about the text that I'm reading into writing. So there's a lot of steps, but we can break it down, and it helps us with our understanding. Now we're reading Wonder, which is not just one little story, it's a chapter book. But the part where it says, how does the story end? How does the chapter end? You can do it that way, okay? So I'll read the first chapter in front of everybody, and as you see, I'm going to pick up this highlighter, and I'm going to highlight it. That way I can actually understand things. Right? So the chapter says ordinary. I know I'm not an ordinary kid. Oh, wow, that's first person, so I'm going to highlight I'm, because they're probably the main character. I just got to figure out who I'm is. I mean, sure, I do ordinary things. Okay, I'm going to highlight do ordinary things because he said they do something. I eat ice cream. I ride my bike. I play ball. I have an Xbox. Stuff like that makes me ordinary, I guess. And I feel ordinary. There's a feeling inside. But I know ordinary kids don't make other ordinary kids. I know ordinary kids don't make other ordinary kids run away screaming in playgrounds. I know ordinary kids don't get stared at wherever they go. If I found a magic lamp and I could have one wish, I would wish that I had a normal face that no one ever noticed at all. I would wish that I would walk down the street without people seeing me and then doing that look away thing. Sounds like this is some sort of feelings, so I'm going to kind of box it, highlight it, Here's what I think. The only reason I'm not ordinary is that no one else sees me that way. But I'm kind of used to how I feel by now. I know how to pretend I don't see the faces people make, so he pretends. Does not see what people do. We've all gotten pretty good at that sort of thing. Me, Mom, Dad, Via. Those are other characters. We still got to figure out who the main character is, but I'm going to highlight them because they may be important later. Actually, I take that back. Via's not so good at it. She can get really annoyed when people do something rude. Like, for instance, one time in the playground, some other kids made some noises. I don't even know what the noises were exactly because I didn't hear them myself. But Via heard, and she just started yelling at the kids. That's the way she is. I'm not that way. Via doesn't see me as ordinary. She says she does, but if I were ordinary, she wouldn't feel like she needs to protect me as much. Mom and Dad don't see me as ordinary either. They see me as extraordinary. I think the only person in the world who realizes how ordinary I am is me. My name is August, by the way. I won't describe what I look like. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably worse. So my name is August. That tells me that the main character of this chapter is a boy named August. So now, I've read the chapter, so we go back through all these pages and to this organizer. So, who is the main character?
August.
August. Okay. August. Where and when does the story take place? Well, that one I don't feel like has been answered yet. It could be any time. In fact, the book could take place in the 1800s. It hasn't been really specified yet. But they did say something about playground, so it's probably a recent or modern time. But I'm going to put a question mark because it still has to be yet solidified. What did the main character do? Well, he does a lot of things. He eats ice cream, rides bikes, plays his Xbox. And how does the story end? Well, he feels like he's ordinary, but he feels like nobody else does. So. And how does the main character feel? Well, he seems kind of like he doesn't like himself for some reason. And it has something to do with his face. Okay. So next, then I would write this in my organizer. Because all these questions are great, but to actually put them in a specific order of things that help relate to what actually happened in the story, we do then put them in this organizer. And then after I would write those in the organizer, I would then go through my rubric. Okay? So, you know what we're going to do is that you're going to read the second chapter, and you're going to highlight and answer these questions, okay? And we'll do it together, and then you can do it by yourself. The whole class will as well. Right? So I'll erase the answers of part 1. That way you can focus on part 2. But we'll keep the questions up so you can keep them in mind. And when it comes to a book, we're not only going to be asking what happens, but then the themes and why do they relate as well. And that's really the ultimate purpose of why we want to do this reading comprehension is we can read a lot of stuff fluently, but if we don't understand it, we don't understand how it connects. So if you could hold that page right there. And I'll just sit right next to you. And we'll just read it together now. I'll have you read it out loud. And I want you to go ahead and highlight in my book characters. If there's anything about where and when the story takes place, what does the main character do? How does the story end? And how does the main character feel? And we'll put it all together, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Next week I start 5th grade. Since I've never been to a real school before, I'm pretty much totally and completely petrified. People think I haven't gone to school before because of the way I look, but that's not that. Because of all the surgeries I've had, 27 since I was born. The bigger ones happened before when I was even 4 years old.
Following along with the words.
So I don't remember those. I've had 2 or 3 surgeries every year since, some big and some small. And because I'm little for my age, I have some other medical mysteries that the doctors never really figured out. I used to get sick a lot. That's when my parents decided it was better if I didn't go to school. I'm much stronger now though. The last surgery I had was 8 months ago. I probably won't have to have any more for another couple of years. Mom homeschools me. She used to be a children's book illustrator. She draws really great fairies and mermaids. Her boy stuff isn't so hot though. She once tried to draw me Darth Vader, but ended up looking like some weird mushroom-shaped robot. I haven't seen her draw anything in a long time. I think she's too busy taking care of me and Via. I can't say I always wanted to go to school because that wouldn't be exactly true. What I wanted was to go to school, but only if I could be like every other kid that was going to the school. I have lots of friends and I hang out after school and stuff like that. I have a few really good friends now. Christopher is my best friend, followed by Zachary and Alex. We've known each other since we were babies, and since they've always known me the way I am. They're used to me. When we were little, we used to have play dates all the time. But then Christopher moved to Bridgeport in Connecticut. That's more than an hour away from where I live, in the North River Heights. Which is at the tip top of Manhattan. Zachary and Alex started going to school. It's funny, even though Christopher's the one who moved away, I still see him more than I see Zachary or Alex. They have all these new friends now. If we bump into each other on the street, they're still nice to me though. They always say hello. I have other friends too, but not as good as Christopher and Zach and Alex were. For instance, Zach and Alex always invited me to their birthday parties when they were little, but Joel and Eamon and Gabe never did. Emma invited me once, but I haven't seen her in a long time. And of course, I always go to Christopher's birthday. Maybe I'm making too big a deal out about birthday parties.
Okay, so who is the main character?
It's still August.
Still August, because it sounds like a character hasn't changed. Where and when does the story take place?
North River Heights before he starts 5th grade, so late summer.
Okay, so good. Okay, so it's about late summer, and he lives in North River Heights, Manhattan. Good. What does the main character do? What has he gone through in this chapter?
Several surgeries. Mm-hmm. 27.
So he's gone through several surgeries. What else has he been doing?
His mom has homeschooled him until now.
Yeah. Anything else?
He goes to birthday parties.
He's had a few friends, yeah. So how does the story end?
It ends with him thinking he makes too big a deal about birthday parties.
Okay. And then also just he's talking about the friends he does have, right? So it's not just the last sentence of how a story ends, but it's also about like the collaborative piece, if that makes sense. Now, how does the main character feel? And can you show me how you know this?
He feels that his friends are kind of abandoning him.
And how do you know that?
He sees Christopher more than he sees Zachary and Alex, and Christopher is the one who moved away.
Okay. And that's really good deductive understanding on that. So it'll be interesting to see what friendship Sproul has in this book, right? So let's put that in the organizer. Right? And then we'll go through the rubric, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get your pencil out. And we'll go right through this. So we'll write down who the main character is. When and where does the story take place? What does the main character do? Right, and then how does the main character feel? Right, and then how does the story end? All right, so now let's go to the rubric, because this is the way that we're going to show that we're able to keep track of our work as well as our understanding, okay? So I understand and am able to answer who, what, where questions right. Now before we go on, 1 is strongly disagree, 2 is agree, 3 is not sure, 4 is disagree, and 5 is strongly disagree. Okay. I am able to read and understand narrative texts. I can pick out characters and identify the main characters in stories. I can describe and pick out settings, time, and place of stories. I understand where a story ends and how it is finalized. I can understand and describe character emotions and feelings from the text that I read. I can understand and describe the main character's actions. I am able to identify keywords or phrases that relate to the topic. I know if I understand what I have read or not. If I'm able to recall information that I have read. I'm able to put my thoughts about the text that I read into writing. All right, so what we do from this is then we start making goals, right? So it looks like you're understanding things pretty well. Is there any way or any areas you'd want to improve on?
Number 11, putting thoughts into writing.
Okay, so that will give me information as your teacher that we can start talking about those themes in the book and then even writing on them. Okay, nice. All right, so we'll keep that in mind and then we'll start working on other chapters tomorrow.